You know, when we talk about mass incarceration and then specifically looking at the state of Michigan, do you think that we even really take in all of the factors that lead to the high prison population in terms of economic factors and education? Have we gathered all of those, or is there still more that we're missing?
Absolutely. When you look at the history, particularly state of Michigan, in the up to the early 90s, there was close to only 10 prisons in Michigan. You had this prison bloom from 10 prisons to almost 60 prisons. And where did this population come from? Particular from urban areas. And so when we do the math, where they're paying close to $40,000 for each inmate for every year, just imagine what that $40,000 would look like if we just did it instead of the back end, the front end, investing within our community. It's simple mathematics of really caring and really digging into the problem and wanting to make human beings better.
So what do we need to invest in our communities so we're not now investing on the back end when people are coming out of prison?
We need to stop taking the approach of being tough on crime. This whole tough on crime is really about scaring people, and it's about creating more prisons, more police. And in reality, if you talk to any honest police officer, they'll tell you, more police is not necessarily going to solve it. We have to take a community approach, and the community approach is sustaining the economic opportunities within our communities. Crime exists in our community for the most part because the fact there's no economic opportunities, and also the lack of human development. If we improve human development, tie that in with economic opportunities, that decreases crime. And you didn't have to go to Harvard to figure that out.
When you're working with young people, in your community, in your neighborhood right now, what are they telling you, and what are you trying to help them do or change in their lives so they don't end up on a certain path?
With the biggest message, they're angry. The biggest message that they've been left for dead. They're in the jungle, and as a result, they've been manufactured into being wolves. And so, in the result of the low social skills that they have, robbing, stealing, not caring becomes a way of life. And this way of life is a direct result of being ignorant. And there's nothing wrong with being ignorant. It only means not to know. But when you make ignorance a way of life, then it contributes to a ability to find yourself in prison, the ability to be killed. But this is what you've been inherited. For me, I met my father in prison for the first time. And, it was my grandmother had wanted my name to be Hope like hell, I don't turn like my daddy. And unfortunately, I did. But the other fortunate thing was because of him, I was able to redeem myself in prison because he had redeemed himself.
People talk about we need policies and we need prison reform, corrections reform. Do you find that the policies are meeting where the need is? Are we talking too much about what happens when people come out of prison before, as opposed to what happens before people even get there?
Absolutely. For one, it's a top-down approach. Two, it's putting a Band-Aid on the gunshot wound. Fundamentally, if we're going to have true policy, quote-unquote reform, we need the mothers, we need the fathers, we need the folks who are directly impacted by it. Again, when you look at the social levees of our communities, when they collapse, the floodgates open up in terms of people turning on each other, and folks just kind of sat on the periphery, and then we're going to send the police and lock everybody up. Lock everybody up has put us in the position that we're in. The fact that you have more people locked up in this country than anywhere else in the world. And in reality, many of those people are coming home. And when they come home, what are they coming home to? So we have to be it has to be a duality. And then the statistic says my son faces a high probability of going to prison. So then this is the continued perpetuation of it, and the fact that we have people, whether in the politicians, schools, business, they don't care. And it's simple. If you care, and that young man or that family, as you care about your own, we can create the remedies that's needed.
What about coming out? How difficult is it for people to come back out, try to start a life over again, and then we see a high rate of people going right back into the system?
Recidivism is very high because the fact that there's no rehabilitation for the most part that takes place in prison. Except for if a prisoner takes upon himself to begin to prepare him or herself to come home.
Do you feel that you had any kind of rehabilitation in prison?
My father. If it wasn't for my father, I would have came home still lost, still confused, and found myself contributing back into my community in a negative way. And so coming home, in reality, I came home 16 years ago. This conversation we having wasn't in the forefront. So I'll use the example around the movie, the X-Men. And when we look at the X-Men, we look at Charles Xavier and them, and we put them on a pedestal, but we forget about the other mutants that's hiding somewhere. that has been cast away, that's been thrown away. And those are the ones that we have to reach. And there's so many prisoners, there's so many families, formerly incarcerated men and women who make up more of that population, who are afraid, who have this stigma of shame of who I am. And also, again, my son, this is what he inherits. And so the pathway of prison is rooted in that continuation of perpetuating the mentality that prison is our only fix.